Narrator, tone, serious Emma woke up from the darkness, the phone by her bed displaying, July 27, 1 a.m. The back of her head ached, and she felt groggy, as if a piece of her memory was missing. The bathroom light was still on, flickering intermittently.
Emma, tone, confused. What is this sticky stuff on my face and neck?
Narrator, tone, serious. She went to wash her face, but just as she stepped into the bathroom, the light suddenly went out completely. In the last glimmer of light before it vanished, she vaguely saw a shadowy figure behind the shower curtain.
Emma, tone, terrified. Who's there?
Narrator, tone, serious. Her breath quickened, and a chill ran down her spine. There was no movement behind the shower curtain.
Emma, tone, whispering to herself, maybe I was seeing things?
Narrator, tone, serious. She turned on her phone's flashlight, cautiously approached, and slowly reached out to pull the curtain. As the curtain moved, a hand suddenly fell, its fingers brushing against her leg. Pale, cold, stiff, clearly not a living hand. Goosebumps covered her body instantly, and she slipped, falling straight to the floor. The bathroom light flickered back on for a moment, revealing a headless male body in the bathtub, its bluish-white arm draped over the edge of the tub.
Emma, tone, panicked. What is this?
Narrator, tone, serious. She pressed herself into the corner, her chest heaving, unable to remember why there was a body in her bathroom.
Mechanical voice, tone, robotic fingerprint unlock failed.
Narrator, tone, serious. At that moment, a mechanical voice came from the front door. Someone was trying to get into our house?
Emma, tone, terrified, whispering, who's trying to unlock my door at 1 a.m?
Narrator, tone, serious. She instinctively held her breath. There was silence outside for a long time, and it seemed the person had left. She wiped away tears she hadn't realized were falling and prepared to get up.
Mechanical voice, tone, robotic fingerprint unlock failed.
Narrator, tone, serious. Just as she began to relax, the mechanical voice came again from outside the door. The person was still trying to get in. Then she heard a knocking on the door.
John, tone, anxious Emma, are you asleep?
Narrator, tone, serious. The voice was somewhat muffled by the distance and the door, but it sounded like a young man. But he clearly knew her. She shrank into the corner, trembling, too scared to respond.
John, tone, shouting Emma. Are you okay? Open the door.
Narrator, tone, serious. The man's tone was anxious, and the knocking became more urgent and forceful. There was a headless body in the bathroom, and someone unknown was knocking on her door at this hour. She covered her ears, not knowing what to do. Her phone suddenly rang, the caller ID showing Emma's big dog. Seeing this affectionate nickname, a name suddenly popped into her mind, John. This name seemed to belong to her boyfriend, but for some reason, thinking of this name filled her with fear.
Emma, tone, relieved. Hello?
John, tone, worried Emma. Are you home? What happened?
Emma, tone, cautious. Yeah. I'm home.
John, tone, puzzled. Didn't you hear me knocking? I thought something had happened to you.
Emma, tone, lying. I was sleeping and didn't hear it. Why are you here at this hour?
John, tone, puzzled. Didn't you call me an hour ago, asking me to come over quickly?
Emma, tone, confused. Did I? Actually, I just woke up, and I seem to have lost.
Narrator, tone, serious. As she mentioned memory loss, a voice in her head warned her not to tell him this.
John, tone, serious. What do you mean? Never mind, just come open the door and let me in.
Narrator, tone, serious. She agreed, took a deep breath to calm herself, and slowly stood up, about to walk out when the bathroom light flickered again. Her raised foot froze, and she stared at the mirror, where 4 bloody words seemed to have suddenly appeared, "Don't open the door." The hand draped over the edge of the bathtub slowly dripped a bead of blood from its fingertip. I stood frozen, my spine tingling as if electrified, cold sweat instantly breaking out. The room was eerily silent. Who had written those bloody words?
Emma? Why aren't you saying anything?
Didn't you have your fingerprints registered before? Why did I just hear that the fingerprint unlock failed?
My voice trailed off, and there was a long silence on the other end of the line.
Fingerprint unlock failed.
He was clearly still trying to open the door.
Maybe the fingerprint lock is broken. Emma, just open the door first. We can talk once I'm inside.
A strange feeling wrapped around me.
I think I should call the police first.
Without waiting for his response, I hung up and prepared to dial the emergency number. Instinctively, I glanced again at the bloody words on the mirror and my reflection. My face, neck, and collar were stained with dark red blood, all dried and crusted. With trembling hands, I put down the phone and looked at the body in the bathtub. Could it be that I harmed this person? Why can't I remember anything? In a daze, my phone rang again. I didn't answer, and it eventually stopped ringing. The call log showed only his 2 calls. When I checked my contacts, he was the only number listed. Everything was too bizarre. Outside, the mechanical voice continued.
Fingerprint unlock failed. Fingerprint unlock failed. Fingerprint unlock failed.
Suddenly,
Fingerprint unlock successful.
hearing this, I shivered, my heart pounding. How did he open it? Was the fingerprint lock really broken?
Emma, I'm coming in.
The front door creaked open, and fear gripped my heart. I instinctively tiptoed out of the bathroom, scanned the bedroom, turned off the lamp, and quickly hid under the bed. The room plunged into darkness, and I could only hear the heavy sound of the door closing, followed by slow, deliberate footsteps.
Emma, where are you?
He moved slowly, groping in the dark, then seemed to kick a chair, causing a clatter. Why didn't he turn on the light? I covered my mouth, trying hard not to make a sound. In the silence, I heard the sound of a hand brushing against the wall, likely searching for the light switch. He wasn't John. The thought struck me otherwise. How could he not know where the switch was? Finally, with a click, the light outside turned on. A pair of black leather shoes appeared at the bedroom door.
Emma, where are you?
Getting no response, he entered the bedroom, then the bathroom. After a moment of silence, he quickly retreated from the bathroom and hurried out of the bedroom, searching the other rooms while calling my name. In the bathroom, my phone rang again. He re-entered the bathroom, picked up my phone, and softly asked,
Hello, where is she?
"Who was he asking? Was there someone else in the house? Or was he asking the headless corpse?"
Oh, so that's where she is.
He chuckled, walking out of the bathroom and slowly approaching the bed. I shivered, the coldness of the tile seeping into my bones. He stood by the bed for a moment, as if about to bend down and look underneath. Fortunately, he sat on the bed instead, tapping his right foot on the floor in a rhythmic pattern. I had no idea what he was doing, silently praying for him to leave.
Watching you.
Who was he talking to? Me? Who was watching me? Suddenly, in the darkness under the bed, I sensed a cold gaze. I stiffly turned my head and met a pair of bloodshot, dark eyes. A pale head lay quietly beside my face, its flesh mangled, eyes gouged out, leaving only 2 hollow sockets staring at me. It was the missing head of the corpse. Fear swept through my entire body, as if thousands of needles were piercing my head all at once. Instinctively, I backed away, my body colliding with the bed, producing a dull thud.
So, here you are.
John's face slowly appeared upside down from under the bed, a half-smile on his lips, his mouth wide open, revealing snow-white teeth and crimson gums, staring straight at me.
Get away from me!
Ignoring his odd behavior, I scrambled out from under the bed. John grabbed me in a tight embrace.
Silly girl, why are you hiding under the bed? Don't be afraid. I'm here.
I struggled out of his arms, looking at him in terror.
How did you know I was under the bed?
I didn't know. Emma, what's wrong?
His fingers paused in midair.
Then why did you say you were watching me?
He was momentarily stunned, a bitter smile appearing on his face. Then he picked up his phone and showed me the lock screen image.
I didn't know where you went. Looking at your picture, I just said it instinctively.
I carefully examined the people in the photo. It was indeed me and him.
Emma, what happened in the bathtub?
I don't know. I just woke up and...
I sat weakly on the bed. But then I suddenly remembered the severed head under the bed and sprang up like I had been electrocuted, moving a few steps closer to him.
What's wrong?
His hand gently touched my shoulder, and this time I didn't resist.
Under the bed.
I pointed tremblingly to where the severed head was. John bent down and looked under the bed.
What a creepy guy, scaring Emma like that.
His voice was soft, with a hint of amusement. He grabbed the hair of the severed head and casually tossed it into the trash can, closing the lid.
Is this a normal reaction?
He turned around, took a few tissues, and meticulously wiped his fingers, like a diner finishing a meal.
Emma, do you really remember nothing?
I really don't know what happened. We should call the police, right?
But what if it really was you?
Then what should we do? Maybe someone is framing me? The police will find out it wasn't me, right?
He lowered his head, lost in thought. In the silence, my phone suddenly beeped with a text message. I opened it. It was from an unknown number.
What do we do?
I handed the phone to John, trembling. He glanced at it, his brow furrowing deeply.
Emma, do you know who the person in the bathroom is?
I can't remember anything.
I looked at the trash can. The severed head was completely disfigured. Although it seemed vaguely familiar, I couldn't recall who it was.
Don't worry. I'll handle it. I'll go transfer the money to this person and buy some things. Stay home and don't open the door for anyone.
After his instructions, he gently patted my hair and turned to leave. I stayed in the bedroom, looking at the trash can with the head and the bathroom with the body. Fear gripped me, and I didn't want to stay there any longer, so I followed him out.
Emma, what's the code? The fingerprint lock seems to have an issue. I'll re-enter the fingerprints.
Only then did I calm down enough to take a good look at him.
I don't remember.
I replied softly, my eyes moving from his shirt to his pants, drawn to a small bulge in his pocket. He was wearing dark brown trousers, with a small protrusion in the pocket, the bottom of which seemed stained with some liquid. The color wasn't clear, but it looked faintly like dark red. He seemed to notice my gaze and slightly turned his body to block the pocket. He lowered his head in thought for a moment, then slowly entered a few numbers.
Password correct.
Looks like I remembered right. Give me your phone too. In case that person sends another message, I can see it immediately.
I handed over the phone, but for some reason, although he was smiling, I saw a shadow of resentment in his eyes.
Emma, don't respond to anyone who knocks, okay?
I nodded, watching the door slowly close. The house fell silent once more, with only the dripping sound from the bathroom breaking the silence. A chill ran through me, and I ran around turning on all the lights in the house. The place was quite spacious, laid out more like a self-built villa than an apartment. Outside the windows, it was pitch black. I walked to a floor-to-ceiling window, wanting to see what was outside. But I saw nothing. Outside the glass, a huge wooden board was nailed shut, completely sealing it off. I ran through the entire house. All the windows were sealed with wooden boards. I found myself trapped in this house with a lifeless body.
Owen had taken my phone, cutting off any means of contacting the outside world. Desperation surged through me as I rushed to the front door, frantically pulling the handle.
It wouldn't budge. A wave of overwhelming fear swept through me. This fear felt oddly familiar, as if it had been there even before my memory loss. Cold sweat drenched my back. I stood by the door for a long time before I finally calmed down a bit. My clothes clung to my body, wrinkled and damp, and the bloodstains on my face and neck emitted a pungent odor. I needed to take a shower. I didn't dare use the bathroom in the bedroom again. Finding a new bathroom in another room, I stripped off my clothes and let the warm water wash over me. As the water cascaded over my head, I noticed a dull pain at the back of my head. Reaching up, my hand came away covered in blood, indicating a wound. Perhaps this was the reason for my memory loss, I thought. Ignoring the pain, I lathered shampoo into my hair. The foam mixed with the blood, running down my face. I closed my eyes, but suddenly heard a faint sound of a door opening outside. Was he back? It had only been 10 minutes. How could he return so quickly? Then came the sound of the door closing, followed by silence. I quietly turned off the shower head, standing still, listening intently to the sounds outside. A rustling noise came from the hallway, like something crawling slowly along the floor. The light above flickered, emitting a buzzing sound. It felt like I was back in that mortuary bathroom. "John?" I called out softly. The rustling noise abruptly stopped. I could only hear my own heavy breathing. Foam slid down my forehead and face. I gently turned on a trickle of water to rinse off the foam, slowly opening my eyes just a sliver. Frosted glass stood before me, obscuring the view outside, but vaguely, there seemed to be a dark shape pressed against the glass. I looked up. A face stared back at me. Pressed against the ceiling, two hollow eye sockets peered through the gap between the glass, staring straight at me. A shiver ran down my spine, foam dripping into my eyes. Instinctively, I closed them, and with a scream, the world plunged into darkness. In the last moment of my sight, I saw the severed head fall. The glass door was slowly pushed open by a pair of pale hands. Narrator, tone, serious Emma woke up in bed once again. The clock showed 6:35, and the dim, yellow light from the bedside lamp barely illuminated the room. She noticed she was already dressed in fresh clothes, her hair dry, and a corner of the blanket covering her.
What's happening?
From outside the bedroom, the sound of chopping filled the air, one chop after another, like a knife hitting bone. Emma, feeling groggy, struggled to sit up and accidentally knocked over a water glass, which shattered on the floor. The chopping sound stopped immediately, followed by hurried footsteps.
Emma, you're awake?
John appeared at the bedroom door, a few drops of something red at the corner of his mouth. Emma widened her eyes and quickly retreated, clutching the blanket and shrinking into the corner of the bed.
What are you doing?
I bought some ribs, thinking you might be hungry when you woke up, so I decided to make some soup for you.
Emma trembled all over and looked at the trash can by the bed.
I saw something in the bathroom earlier.
Saw what? I came back and called you, but you didn't respond. I finally found you unconscious in the guest bathroom and brought you back to bed.
I saw a head.
A head? Did you have a nightmare?
He came closer and gently placed a hand on her forehead. John seemed to have forgotten everything that had happened before.
The head that was in there.
John gave her a strange look, then reached out and opened the lid of the trash can, revealing a round object inside.
Is this what you're talking about? Silly, come and see for yourself.
Emma slowly moved to the edge of the bed and looked over. Inside the trash can was only half a watermelon rind. She was stunned for a moment, then immediately climbed out of bed and rushed into the bathroom. Narrator, tone, confused. It was spotless inside, the bathtub clean, and even the shower curtain she had pulled down earlier was perfectly intact and hanging on the rod.
Could it really have been a nightmare?
She rushed out of the bathroom again and, seeing John's surprised expression, ran to the floor-to-ceiling window.
These boards, what's going on with them?
I was going to ask you the same thing. I haven't been here for a few days, and now I find you've put these up.
Emma didn't say anything more, just let him help her to the dining table and sit her down. On the table were a bowl of rice, a plate of braised pork, and a dish of mapo tofu.
Emma, you start eating. I'll go finish the soup.
He gently touched her face. His fingers were pale and cold, like a snake slithering across her skin. Maybe it was just her imagination, but Emma thought she smelled a hint of something metallic on his hands. John walked into the kitchen and closed the door tightly behind him.
I have to admit, the dishes look and smell delicious.
The braised pork was a rich red, and the tofu with chili peppers was a striking contrast of red and white, making her stomach growl. She picked up a piece of braised pork and put it in her bowl, just about to take a bite when the chopping sound started again from the kitchen. A terrifying image flashed in her mind, and her hand shook, dropping the meat back into the bowl.
What kind of tofu has such wrinkles? It looks just like...
She sat there quietly, listening to the chopping sound for 10 minutes.
What is he chopping that takes so long?
A chill crept up from her feet to her brain. Emma slowly stood up, took off her slippers, and silently moved to the kitchen door. She gently opened the door a crack and peeked inside.
What are you looking at?
His face was so close to mine that I could almost feel his breath. My legs went weak, and I fell to the ground.
Hey, just kidding with you. Why are you so easily scared?
I opened my mouth but couldn't utter a single word.
Want to watch me cook?
He took my hand and led me into the kitchen.
If you want to watch, just watch. No need to be so sneaky.
On the cutting board was a pile of chopped pork ribs, and the pot on the gas stove was covered, steam billowing out. I noticed a few black strands on the lid, looking like hair.
The soup needs a bit more time.
He stepped in front of me to block my view.
Want to take a look?
I hesitated.
Emma, sometimes it's better not to know everything. Nightmares are best left as just nightmares.
His tone was gentle, but I detected a cold warning in his words. I nodded, forcing a smile, and walked out. Perhaps he was just trying to protect me. I sat at the dining table, my mind swirling with terrifying thoughts, yet I couldn't help but find excuses for him. Even if everything was true, maybe he just wanted to bear it all alone and let me forget about it?
Emma, why aren't you eating yet?
John brought 2 bowls of soup, placing one in front of me.
Eat it while it's hot.
I nodded, picking up the spoon to take a sip of the soup. In the thick, white broth, a half-centimeter-long hair floated, slightly curled. It looked like an eyelash.
Emma, do you know how to dispose of a body without leaving any trace?
Looking at that eyelash, my stomach churned. I bent over, retching violently.
Emma, what's wrong? Is it too greasy?
He quickly stood up, gently patting my back.
How could I forget? You're expecting, and you need to eat lighter food.
Expecting? My hand went to my abdomen, and a memory suddenly surfaced. Yes, I seemed to be pregnant.
Go rest for a bit.
He helped me to the bedroom, letting me lie down. He hurried out and returned with a glass of milk and 2 slices of bread.
Eat these to settle your stomach. I'll make something lighter.
He flashed a big smile, his teeth stained with bits of meat, then walked out. The sound of chopping meat resumed in the kitchen. I looked at the milk and bread beside me, forcing myself to eat despite the nausea. The milk warmed me up, and the feeling of fullness, combined with the relaxation after the tension, brought on a wave of drowsiness. My eyelids grew heavy, and I drifted into a deep sleep. A rhythmic chopping sound lingered by my ears, growing closer, almost as if it was right next to me. Wait, that wasn't chopping anymore, it sounded more like knocking? Right under my bed. I forced my eyes open. The lights were out, leaving only the dim glow of the bedside lamp.
Bang, bang.
Something was knocking under my bed. Then, a faint chewing sound, like something savoring tender meat, followed by droplets of saliva hitting the tiles with a plop, plop. Then came the crisp sound of bones being crunched. My breathing grew rapid. I wanted to get up, but my limbs felt as if they were filled with lead, refusing to move. I turned my head and realized my hands and feet had been tightly bound to the bed with hemp ropes. The bed creaked softly with my movement. The chewing under the bed stopped. The room fell into a deathly silence. But soon, I heard movement again from under the bed. It sounded like the rustling of clothes against the floor. Whatever it was crawling out, faster and faster. I wanted to close my eyes but couldn't help but turn my head to look. At the edge of my vision, a grayish-blue hand slowly emerged from under the bed. Then another hand, clutching a head that looked like it had been slow-cooked.
Do you want meat?
Thick saliva dripped onto my face. I whimpered softly, tears sliding down my cheeks. A slimy tongue licked my face, sending shivers all over my body.
Eat meat.
It suddenly shouted like a fervent believer, banging its hands on the bedside table, producing a continuous bang, bang sound. I snapped my eyes open, and there was John's face. John looked at Emma with a worried expression, gently wiping the sweat from her forehead.
Emma? What's wrong?
Another nightmare?
John sighed in relief.
Yeah. He noticed a band-aid on the corner of his eye. What happened? I cut myself while cooking, nothing serious. He smiled gently.
Emma rubbed her eyes and glanced at her phone. The time showed 9:54.
Had I only slept for less than 3 hours? My head feels foggy, and my body feels like it has been asleep for a long time.
I made some porridge with preserved egg and lean meat. Would you like some? He picked up the bowl from the bedside table.
At that moment, there was a knock on the door. It sounded eerily similar to the noise in Emma's dream.
Is someone knocking?
John's hand holding the bowl froze for a moment. He put it back down and looked at her expressionlessly.
Is there?
The knocking continued outside.
Can't you hear it? She looked into his clear eyes, feeling an inexplicable fear.
He was silent for a moment, then finally sighed, pursing his lips as if making a difficult decision.
I haven't finished dealing with it.
Dealing with, you mean?
Yes. He nodded. That wasn't a nightmare, it was real.
But I want it to be just a nightmare for you. Do you understand what I mean? He held her hand tightly.
Emma nodded slightly.
So until I finish dealing with that body, we can't let anyone in.
Before he could finish, Emma's phone buzzed with a new text message. It was from the same number as before, with just 2 words.
Open the door.
She tried to reply, but the message failed to send.
It's that person. How do they know where I live?
John didn't answer, lost in thought for a moment before looking up at her with a frown.
Maybe we should let them in.
A fierce look flashed in his eyes.
I can't let anyone hurt you.
Emma immediately understood his intention. He turned and walked out of the bedroom. She heard him rummaging in the kitchen, the sound of metal clinking, and then he walked towards the front door and opened it.
Hello, can I help you?
The voice outside was young, a girl.
Hi, I'm Emma's friend. I haven't seen her for a few days, and I couldn't reach her by phone, so I came to check if she's okay.
She's fine, just expecting a baby, so she's resting at home. He paused. Please come in and we can talk.
Emma quickly ran out of the bedroom, fearing what John might do. The visitor was a young girl with ash blonde hair. When she saw Emma, she smiled brightly and waved.
Emma! You're resting, but why didn't you reply to my messages?
Her smile was sincere and sunny, with no hint of pretense.
Sorry, come in and sit.
Emma quickly stepped forward, positioning herself between John and the girl, and welcomed her inside. John frowned.
Why do you live in such a remote place? There's hardly anyone around. And why is it so dark in here during the day?
After getting pregnant, I've become sensitive to light. She turned on the lights and invited the girl to sit. Actually, I hit my head a few days ago and lost my memory.
Lost your memory? You don't remember who I am? She blinked.
Emma nodded awkwardly.
Sophia. She sighed. Got a man and forgot your best friend, I get it.
Emma, you need to rest more because of your health.
Is this your boyfriend? She raised an eyebrow at Emma. He's even more handsome than in the photos.
An idea struck Emma.
I'm bored being home alone every day. Oh, by the way, I'm a bit hungry. Could you make me something to eat?
John frowned but eventually went into the kitchen. Emma took the opportunity to pull Sophia into the bedroom and closed the door.
Sophia, can I see a photo of me and him together?
Noticing her puzzled look, Emma made an excuse.
My phone broke, and I lost all my old photos.
Sophia nodded, took out her phone, and found their chat history.
Here, you sent me this when you were showing off your relationship.
She showed Emma a photo, and Emma examined it closely. The man in the photo was indeed John.
Why are you looking at a photo so intently?
Nothing, just.
Before she could finish, a detail in the photo caught her eye. She zoomed in for a closer look. A chilling sensation spread from her heart to her limbs.
In the photo, John doesn't have that mole at the corner of his eye.
I flipped through several more photos, each one just as unsettling. Recalling the bandage at the corner of John's eye when I woke up this morning, a chill ran down my spine.
The mole by his eye, the fingerprint lock, the missing light switch, the vanished head, the sound of chopping meat, and all the strange behaviors of that man flashed through my mind one by one. Could it be that he isn't really John?
Emma, what's wrong? You look terrified.
Sophia. That person isn't.
Dinner's ready, come and eat. John stood behind Sophia, holding a kitchen knife, looking at me coldly. His eyes seemed to say that if I uttered another word, he would harm Sophia.
Sophia, would you like to join us for dinner?
John's face softened into a gentle smile.
No, thanks. I just came to check on Emma. I have something to do, so I'll be leaving now. If you don't invite me to your wedding, I'll beat you up.
Could you give me your phone number?
I handed her my phone, cautiously glancing at John. Surprisingly, he didn't stop me.
Emma, you rest for a bit. I'll see her out. The baby needs rest. You should think more about the child.
A threat. But I could only watch as he closed the bedroom door and followed Sophia out. the front door opened and closed, and the house returned to silence. I quickly grabbed my phone and sent a text to Sophia. Run! However, the screen displayed a message failure. At some point, my SIM card had been removed. What would happen to Sophia? When John returned, would he drag her lifeless body back? I no longer had the strength to think about it. I walked out of the bedroom, seeing the table full of dishes, now slightly cold. I went to the front door and tried the handle, but as expected, it wouldn't open. The pot in the kitchen was still steaming. I walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge. My nerves, already worn out by the day's horrors, didn't even flinch at the sight of the headless body wrapped tightly in plastic wrap. I remembered the persistent sound of chopping meat in the kitchen. The body under the thick plastic wrap must have been dismembered by now. I noticed the right hand of the body was missing a thumb. Now I understood how he could unlock the fingerprint lock. I turned to the pot and lifted the lid. A head, boiled to mush, bobbed up and down in the boiling water. I bent over, dry heaving, my vision spinning until everything faded to black. In my sleep, I vaguely heard the front door open and close. Warm arms lifted me and placed me on a soft bed. I struggled to open my eyes a sliver. The room was still dim, like night, with only a bedside lamp casting a faint yellow glow. The man was wiping surfaces with a wet cloth, occasionally picking up stray hairs. He must have been erasing fingerprints, I thought. Next, he might kill me. I weakly reached for my phone. The time showed July 27th, 10:43.
Awake.
He noticed my movement, sat on the bed, and gently brushed his fingers across my face. He then brought a cup of water and slowly fed it to me.
Sleep a bit more. When you wake up, everything will be better.
His voice seemed to carry a hypnotic effect, and my consciousness grew heavier. My eyes closed again. Ropes wrapped around my hands and feet. In the last moment of fading consciousness, in a dreamlike state, I vaguely heard a voice.
These have been the best 2 days of my life.
Goodbye, my little fool.
I don't know how long I had slept, it seemed like I started dreaming again. I heard the familiar sound of chopping meat and bones. The noise was muffled and didn't last long. Then, there was the sound of plastic sheets being gathered, cling film being wrapped, water running, the freezer door opening, the lid of a stew pot, and the gas stove. It was quiet for a long time, and I heard some faint noises. Something was burning somewhere, and a slight, acrid smoke began to fill the bedroom. Was I going to be burned alive? I wanted to open my eyes. I still had my child to protect, but it was like sleep paralysis. I couldn't move an inch. Soon, I heard the sound of sirens, people arguing outside, knocking, and then banging on the door.
Emma, wake up. It's me, Sophia.
I heard Sophia's voice. She held me, softly calling my name. Saved, at last. How wonderful. I fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up again, I was already lying in a hospital bed. Bright sunlight streamed through the window, filling the room with light. The clock on the wall showed 1:15. The dim bedside lamp was gone, and for some reason, I felt a strange sense of loss.
Emma, can I ask you some questions about the case?
I nodded. But I can't remember much from before, only today.
The officer frowned, a hint of doubt in his eyes. The doctor beside him pointed to the bandage on the back of my head and whispered a few words.
What is your relationship with John?
It seems he is my boyfriend. Has he been arrested?
John is the victim in this case.
I was stunned.
Do you know Michael?
Michael?
A mole with a tear-shaped mark suddenly appeared in my mind, and fragmented memories surfaced. So it was him. The person I faced that day was him.
I know him.
We have preliminarily determined that the suspect in John's murder is his twin brother, Michael. Can you provide any information about Michael?
I don't remember very clearly, but I have the impression that he was a very, very good person.
The officer's eyes showed a thoughtful expression.
According to our forensic analysis, John died at 9 p.m. on the 26th, and you had a phone call with Sophia at 10 p.m. on the 25th road. Surveillance shows that Michael then drove to your suburban residence. What did you talk about at that time?
Sorry, I only remember today's events.
Then, do you know why Michael boarded up all the windows with wooden planks?
I don't know.
One last question. Did Michael ever express any affection towards you?
No, he didn't.
The officer was silent for a moment, then said,
Please tell me everything you can remember about today.
My body was actually fine, and the baby inside me was healthy too. I was discharged from the hospital soon after. After that, I went to the police station a few more times to give statements, cooperated with the police in investigating the suburban house, and once identified the body. John's head had been stewed beyond recognition, making it impossible to identify. As for the body, due to my memory loss, there wasn't much to recognize either. Anyway, the police had already confirmed it through DNA comparison, so the procedure was actually meaningless. However, what surprised me was that apart from the head being removed and the right thumb missing, the body had not been dismembered. I recalled the sound of chopping meat in the kitchen, feeling puzzled. But I indeed hadn't seen Michael dismembering the body with my own eyes. There were also 2 lie detector tests, but since I hadn't tried to hide anything, I passed them smoothly. A brother killing another brother, involving decapitation and stewing the body, was considered a particularly heinous crime. The police quickly issued a warrant for Michael and conducted a radial search centered on the crime scene. But as 1 month, then 2 months passed, there was still no clue. Michael seemed to have vanished from the world. Old friends started reaching out to me. My contact list, which originally had only 1 number, gradually grew. But most of the time, I still preferred to turn off my phone and stay at home alone. Life returned to normal. About 2 months later, as my belly grew, the long-lost memories in my mind began to resurface.
On September 27th, I had arranged to meet Sophia for tea.
When I walked into the store, she was already there, resting her chin on her hand and staring out the window in a daze.
Wow, you finally remembered me. You're treating today, okay? Consider it a reward for saving your life that day.
I nodded.
According to the police report, she had sensed something was wrong at my house that day. She bolted out the door and ran, and Michael didn't react in time. By the time he chased after her, she had already disappeared into the woods and couldn't be found. During her escape, she lost her phone somewhere and, fearing Michael might be lurking outside, hid for several hours before daring to return to her car. She then drove to the road and borrowed a phone to call the police.
Emma, you seem different, like there's a dark cloud hanging over you. It's been a while since that incident. Don't.
I killed John.
She froze, her hand instinctively pulling back.
I remember everything now. That night, John came to me and demanded I get rid of the baby. He had someone else outside, and this baby was just a burden to him. He couldn't keep it. He knocked me to the ground, grabbed my hair, and dragged me towards the hospital. Then I slashed his throat with a knife. He pushed me down, and my head hit the ground. In the last moment before I lost consciousness, I dialed your number for help. But I didn't expect Michael to come.
The smile on Sophia's face slowly faded. She pressed her lips together and nodded.
I was on a business trip then. I could only tell Michael.
When I woke up again, it was the 27th.
Sophia's lips moved as if she wanted to say something, but she remained silent in the end.
Why did he take the blame for me?
What do you think? Some people love but can't have, like him, like me.
He never showed it in front of me.
Maybe because you're a fool. He always said you were like a little fool. So the version of him you remember had to be a twisted one. Otherwise, when the police came, even if they didn't use a lie detector, just questioning you would have given you away.
Yeah, whenever I think of him, I hear the sound of chopping meat. Is he okay?
How would I know?
Can you tell me about him?
Some things are better left unknown. Just think of it as a dream.
I was stunned for a moment, as if he had said something similar to me that day.
Okay. If you hear anything about him, let me know.
The sunlight outside was beautiful, and people walked in small groups. I didn't feel much sadness. I always felt that somewhere in the city's corners, a pair of eyes were quietly watching me. I pushed open the glass door.
Do you really think it was just a dream?
I turned around. Sophia was crying uncontrollably, her hands on the table.
You have no idea what he did for you. You should remember his name for the rest of your life. Carve it into your bones.
Everyone in the store was looking at us. I silently walked back to the chair and sat down.
I want to hear.
Sophia took several deep breaths to calm herself before sitting down.
When did you kill John?
The 26th. That's what the autopsy said.
Sometimes even bodies can be deceptive.
Sophia lit a cigarette and began to slowly recount Michael's story. Emma killed my brother. I don't know why, and I don't care. I just want to save her.
Relieved, Emma, wake up. It's me, Michael. You're safe now.
When I arrived at her house, the front door was wide open. John was lying in the bathroom, blood everywhere, already gone. She was unconscious on the floor, so I carried her to the bed first. I thought of countless ways to save her.
First, I could take the blame for her, but the time of death would give me an alibi. Second, I could hide the body, but modern forensic science would find clues. Emma would probably confess under police interrogation.
Finally, I thought, if the victim's body has already been found, would anyone still look for it? It was July 25, 2312. First, I moved John's body to the bathtub, filled it with hot water, and drained the limbs. Then, I cleaned up the blood in the bathroom. Emma would be scared if she woke up to see so much blood. After these two steps, Emma woke up once. I found that she had lost her memory due to a head injury. This might be the luckiest thing.
Emma, it's okay, just rest. Everything will be fine.
Originally, I planned to teach her how to deal with police questioning over the next 2 days. But now, another plan formed in my mind. As long as nothing went wrong, I wouldn't have to worry about her cracking under police pressure. I played the role of John, and while she was still dazed, I gave her the first dose of sleeping pills.
Just sleep, Emma. You'll feel better soon.
The next step was to make her believe that 2 days had passed as one. July 26, 6:15. I cut off John's thumb so I could use it to unlock the door when I returned. I went home and took a cleaver from a set of knives to use as the murder weapon. I bought the necessary tools for dismemberment at a convenience store downstairs and a second-hand freezer from a market. I contacted Sophia through a purchased WeChat account, picked her up in an alley without surveillance, and placed her in a small motel not far from Emma's house. Then I drove to a lumberyard, ordered a batch of wood planks, and nailed shut all the windows leading outside. This way, it would be impossible to tell the time from the light inside.
This has to be perfect. No mistakes.
9:13, using the thumb, I re-entered the house and first smashed John's face to prevent her from recognizing him. Although we are identical twins, there are subtle differences like his tear mole, hairstyle, and ear piercings. After some thought, I decided to cut off his entire head and temporarily hid it under the bed.
I'm sorry, John. This is the only way.
Next, it was my time to perform. I needed to make Emma fear me. Until she believed I was a complete psychopath. I'm sorry that your last memory of me is like this. July 26, 10:35. I sat by the bed, quietly watching her face. This might be the first and last time in my life that I looked at the person I love so closely. As she began to stir, I knew she was about to wake up, so I adjusted her phone's time to July 27, 0:30.
Emma, I'm here. Don't worry.
I wrote "Do not open the door" in blood on the bathroom mirror, then left the house and leaned against the window, listening for any noise inside. When I heard Emma's scream, I returned to the door, first using my fingerprint, then slowly knocking. However, the plan hit a small snag. A dead person's finger can unlock a fingerprint lock for a while due to bioelectricity, but after too much time had passed, it failed multiple times. Fortunately, I managed to open the door in the end. The threatening text message was set to send at a specific time to make her give up the idea of calling the police.
Emma, don't scream. It's me. Everything is under control.
11:18, I went out again and registered my fingerprint. I didn't expect the password to be John's birthday. At that moment, I could imagine how jealous I felt. After leaving, I returned to the car and took out the dismemberment tools and the freezer for preserving the body. These things were heavy, but I feared the smell of decay would make Emma uncomfortable. Although I would cause her a lot of harm, I would try to minimize her suffering.
I'm sorry, Emma. I'm doing this for you.
I didn't expect her to be so timid, fainting directly in the bathroom when I scared her. Luckily, I caught her as she fell. The steam filled the room, and her soft body fell into my arms. At that moment, I felt like I might faint too. A foolish boy once said, "Love is like bubbles rising from the bones." I think the bathroom was already filled with my bubbles. I closed my eyes, embracing the whole world.
Emma, you're safe with me.
15:33, while she slept, I completed most of the dismemberment and cleaning process. John's head was boiling into mush in a pot. I checked carefully, this way, the details like hair, ear piercings, and the tear mole would never be discovered. I adjusted her phone's time to July 27, 6 o'clock. Quietly waiting for my world to wake up.
Emma, I've taken care of everything. Just sleep.
16:48, actually, I had carefully prepared the meal on the table. I had dreamed countless times of sitting at a table with her, eating the food I made, and talking about everyday life. But I had to deepen her fear of me again. After she drank the milk with sleeping pills, I sat by the bed, quietly watching her sleep. How wonderful it would be if time could stop at this moment forever. But I had to finish the remaining dismemberment work.
I'm sorry, Emma. This is for the best.
18:35, I changed her phone's time to July 27, 9:50. I notified Sophia to come and knock on the door, pretending I was going to harm her. Everything was going according to my script. When I returned, she had fainted in the kitchen.
I'm sorry, Emma, for making you suffer so much.
I started cleaning the fingerprints and hair in the house. Not mine, but John's. After cleaning, I intentionally left my fingerprints, skin flakes, and hair in the living area. As if it was me who had been living with Emma all along. The sky gradually darkened. No one could be seen in this suburban area. I packed John's dismembered body into a suitcase and buried it in a forest. This didn't need to be done meticulously. After all, if the victim's body had already been found, no one would look for it again. I called Sophia for the final step of the plan. July 26, 2050. I knew Sophia liked me, and I used her affection to help me complete this perfect crime. After saying goodbye to Emma, I sat in the bathtub and made a cut on my artery. Let the blood drain first, after all, Sophia is a girl, and I didn't want to scare her. My vision grew increasingly blurry. What a pity, a wall stood between me and Emma, and I couldn't see her one last time.
I'm sorry, Emma, for scaring you. I'm sorry, Sophia, for making you do such a terrifying thing. But only by doing this, cutting off my head, boiling it, and disguising it as John's body, could I change John's time of passing from July 25th, when I had an alibi, to July 26th, 9 o'clock, making me the culprit. And as the culprit, I would completely disappear from this world. From your world. Emma, this is just a nightmare. May you never remember it again.
The room was filled with an uneasy silence. Sophia tried to maintain her composure, but her trembling fingers betrayed her.
You probably know what happened next. I took his head and disguised it as John's body.
I noticed the effort Sophia made to sound calm.
You slept until the morning of July 27th. I reset your phone to the correct time.
Her words hung heavily in the air.
So, in your perception, everything that happened over those 2 days was condensed into just one day, the 27th.
I tried to process the information, my mind struggling to make sense of it.
When you were interrogated, your subconscious memory of the body you saw last night matched the time of death in the autopsy.
The room fell into a long, heavy silence.
Forget it, just treat it as a nightmare. She wiped her eyes and stood up. It's been a long time. You should start your new life.
She left, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I watched the bustling, bright world outside the window. I still didn't understand why he did all this for me. Perhaps I would never understand, or maybe, with time, I would gradually come to terms with it. The problem with this matter was that his last, bright gaze left for me was like a summer flower burning out in the midnight. This is a question that will never have an answer. I know I am forever trapped in that endless 27th. Extra Michael. Where there is light in this world, there are shadows. I am the shadow of my brother, John.
He is someone who lives in the sunlight, enthusiastic, cheerful, always surrounded by friends, flowers, and admirers. And I am like a mole hiding in a dark cave, accompanied by soil and decaying leaves, never seeing the light of day, always alone.
Although we are twins, everyone who comes to our house can easily tell us apart. John carries warmth, the scent of sunshine. Michael carries coldness, the aura of solitude.
Except for one fool.
That day, I was hiding in the attic when my brother brought home a new girlfriend, and I was attempting my 99th act of self-destruction. Just as the noose tightened around my neck and I tested its weight, the door was suddenly pushed open. In came a girl who didn't seem very bright.
In a panic, I quickly pulled the noose off and hid it behind me.
John, can you teleport?
I was stunned. Someone actually mistook me for my brother.
She then rushed over, worriedly examining the marks on my neck. What happened to your neck?
I got tangled in my earphone wires while sleeping.
Her hands were cold, but as they brushed over the burning pain of the marks, they inexplicably had a soothing effect.
You're so silly.
She didn't doubt my clumsy lie at all, her eyes glistening with tears. Was she crying because she was worried about me? It seemed like the first time someone had shed tears for me. Even if it was because she mistook me for someone else. Later, when John came over, she realized her mistake and awkwardly apologized to me.
Remember to take off your earphones before sleeping next time.
At that moment, I suddenly didn't feel like ending at all. Maybe it was from that moment that I started to like you. The only person in this world who shed tears for me.
Countless times, I watched you bicker with my brother from the darkness. I even secretly took my brother's phone, pretending to be him, just to exchange a few words with you. I hoped you wouldn't recognize me, so I could selfishly enjoy those fleeting moments of joy. But I also hoped you would recognize me, proving that I, in my insignificance, held some special place in your heart.
I even started to get to know your friends, your close ones, just to see you more, to hear your voice. But most of the time, I would hide in the attic, watching the door all day, waiting for you to rush into my cave like that day.
But alas, I am just a mole, only able to watch you from the darkness, living a meager existence, destined to fade if exposed to sunlight.
Until the day I saw you end John's life.
A mole cannot see the light. But it can burn one last time for you before it fades.